Everybody, and welcome to this very first interview on the subject of recruiter enablement. I'm here with Nicolle from Healios. Nicolle, thank you very much for taking the time to join me. Give us a quick intro. Who are you? What do you do?
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, my name is Nicolle Sinclair. I'm the head of talent acquisition at an organisation called Healios, which is a children's mental health and neurodevelopmental service. So delighted to be joining, and the first of many videos, I'm sure.
So let's get straight into it. Recruiter enablement. It's not a very common term at this point, but it's one that I think is going to emerge and become much more mainstream over the coming years. Interested to know, first of all, what does that term mean to you, recruiter enablement?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting phrase, and essentially when we look at enablement, the talent acquisition scene has changed in the sense of what does it look like to be a talent acquisition specialist or a recruiter. I think the skills that are within our backpack mean that the role has diversified and become bigger and bigger. And there's a lot of things that we've talked about in the industry around how that's caused subject matter experts, what do we look like with regards to the preference, what makes it a really strong TA partner. And I think enablement is allowing us to actually think about how do we play to people's strengths and how do we build on that and enable people to have a shared resource and shared learnings, whether it's networks and websites, to feel like they're continuing to raise the bar on the lens of candidate experience, engagement, but also how they engage internally with being able to influence senior stakeholders, hiring managers, the full array of that kind of TA cycle, essentially.
Gosh, right, it covers a lot of different things in that case. All right, so in your current role, is the things that you've put in place to try and facilitate recruiter enablement?
Yeah, so what we tend to do is we do a cycle every 2 weeks with our TA team, which is around a kind of TA upskilling session. But rather than doing the generic off-the-shelf, here are some of the key themes, what we actually do is have a really key lens where we'll have guest speakers that come in from whether it's different technologies, different thought leaders, different pieces of network to really upskill, but also elevate their personal brand as TA individuals. Also encouraging the team to think about going to networking events, things like RecFest. How do you really get yourself out there with regards to understanding what technologies and what methodologies are going on in the market just now? I think TA historically has been very intrinsic in the sense of very internal focused, and actually the need to be external, looking at how we benchmark and not a copycat and lazy methodology, but there's some people that are doing some really great things that make it a person-centric approach. And also how you can use automation to not depersonalize, but really actually enable a smoother process. And actually that standardization of how do you track that and becoming more data aware as well? How do you inform better decision making? How do you drive that forward as well? So I think there's a lot of different touch points in which we are trying to include with how we upskill our TA team. But there's also other great resources of signposting individuals, so not just myself as their leader technically within the TA lens. How do I signpost them to different networking events and different mentors out with our organisation to learn best practice for whether that's out with industry, whether it's specific skill sets. And as we talked about earlier, that backpack of skill set, not everybody is a subject matter expert in all. So how do we learn from each other and share?
Okay, so some of that is about sharing resources, and some of that is also about learning for the TA teams.
Yeah, exactly. And I think sharing resources and value add is, do they come and present like what they've come with? Because when you recruit into your TA team, you're recruiting a skill set. You're essentially having access to a menu of skills that they've maybe developed over their career. But as well as that, how do you bring other people into the fold out with your organisation who are maybe more senior in a pathway or more subject matter experts in automation or specific tech lens as well? So how do we try and move the dial and continue to challenge our thinking and validate at different points, are we doing the right thing and are we moving in the right way? And are we still standing true to what our EVP is essentially?
So content, I think, plays more of a role than it ever has done in talent acquisition, from first stage outreach, social media posts, job adverts. And I know that you're a big believer in the power of content. So like, what are the sorts of things that you've thought about for enabling your teams better in this kind of way? And what are some of the things that you might consider doing in the future?
Yeah, I think a big piece of work that we've done specifically in the last 12 months was actually developing an EVP at Healios. we had a variety of different people from different backgrounds and different industries, which meant that we were becoming quite disconnected in our tone of voice and how we show up to market. So from a clinical lens, we were talking quite specifically in a specific tone of voice versus our tech and product team were quite different. And it didn't feel like there was commonality, that sense of belonging, and even more so important as a virtual first organisation, we had to have that tone of voice that was consistent around how we wrote our job adverts, how we were posting on our social media, how we were engaging through that candidate experience. We didn't want it to feel like it was a bespoke situation every time they went through a process. So from that perspective, having an EVP that really informs what is your TA comm strategy, and it underpins everything that you do to make sure you're consistent in how you show up, but also it follows through that whole employee cycle. So when you've kind of brought someone in, it doesn't feel like, oh, it was just a gimmick in a marketing campaign, because it doesn't unite actually what I've seen versus what I'm experiencing. The great thing about an EVP is it's generated from your employees. So it's supposed to be authentic and organic. And that's a huge part of how we want to show up in that person-centric approach. So bringing people through, and to your point, using that marketing to allow us to either nurture a talent pool, so using marketing automation to bring people through that journey, build a picture as we evolve as an organisation. And once the role is there, they feel very aware and very educated on the organisation. Or it could also be just how we write our job adverts, right? That piece around going on the website and being as blatant. There was 4 different recruiters that have wrote those job adverts. How do you create that continuity, but also ensuring that there's consistency in how you show up as a business, so it doesn't feel disconnected in any way?
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you so much for your time. Nicolle's a big star, by the way. If you haven't come across Nicolle before, then I think you should be following Nicolle on LinkedIn. I know this firsthand from some work that we did in the past around implementing marketing automation and talent acquisition together. And yeah, big thanks for coming and joining me and talking about it, and all the very best. See you soon.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it.